Hey guys, it's Kevin in my review for Malcolm and Marie. What Malcolm and Marie is essentially about is we center on this couple, and basically they have both just gotten back from the premiere of Malcolm's film. He is this very talented film director. He's made this new film, and basically the both of them have come back, and as Malcolm eagerly awaits the reviews, it starts to bring some of the issues of their relationship to light. What starts as them just talking about their relationship really starts to bring about some very severe issues to light, which makes both of them contemplate if their relationship is even going to survive the night overall. So Malcolm and Marie, I was very excited for this film. From the moment it was announced, this was a film that I was eagerly awaiting. And look, I know that I've come down on films centered around the pandemic for a while, but films that were made during the pandemic that have nothing to do with that, I have no issue with at all. And Malcolm and Marie seem like the perfect way to really just take something that you're passionate about and really harness it and try to use it as a coping mechanism during these challenging times. And I was really hoping this film would deliver. It had a really great cast, and Sam Levinson as a creator is someone that I've really been liking a lot more lately than I did initially, so I was really pulling for this film, and I have to say, for me at least, it absolutely delivered. This is such a raw and intimate portrayal of relationships and of relationships that I've seen in quite a bit. This is a film that, again, is very controversial, and I can understand why, but for me, everything that people dislike about this film is a reason that I end up liking it, and we're just getting into that right now, starting off with the cast. And I think no matter how you feel about this film, you cannot deny that the two actors in this movie absolutely carry this entire thing. I mean, both of these actors are really working at the top of their game here. Let's first talk about John David Washington, who, look, throughout the past few years, I've been so impressed by him as an actor. I think he's shown so much potential, but I truly do think that his performance in this film is quite possibly the best performance he has ever given. I mean, he goes all in really just showing the passion of this character. He has about 2 or 3 monologues that I think alone are Oscar scenes, and not in the sense where, oh, this feels like he's trying to get an Oscar. Like, it feels like if they were to play an Oscar clip, this would be his scene in that way, and I think he very much is deserving of that accolade because he really does a phenomenal job playing this character. I mean, this is a guy that is so caught up on, his work and so caught up on making movies that everything else kind of just like slips by him, and so passionate, but he also is very much an egomaniac, and Washington is very aware of that, and he does a really great job at playing this very complex character, but I think really just going all in and showcasing just how dynamic of an actor he truly is. He definitely is one of the best working today, and he absolutely proves it with this film for sure. But the absolute standout of this entire movie, and the performance that everyone's going to be talking about, is Zendaya, who I think steals the entire show in this film. I mean, what I really love about Marie as a character is that this is a much harder role, I think, to pull off than that of Malcolm. Malcolm is someone that is so larger than life. He's so loud and vivacious and just this big personality, whereas Marie is a lot more reserved. For a while, it's a very reserved, very quiet role, but you can see this is a character that throughout all of that has gone through a lot of pain and agony, and also a lot of regret and resentment towards Malcolm, and Zendaya really gets to shine, especially once we get to... And like I said, for a while, that is what she's doing. But once we get to a certain point in the film, she really gets to unleash the true bitterness and anger of this character. And she does an excellent job with that. There is this one monologue especially that she has in the third act of the film, and it is truly a work of art. I mean, every second of what she was doing here was phenomenal. I couldn't believe the way they went about it in this film, and again, it just really speaks to how great of an actress Zendaya really is. It's easily one of her best performances to date. Loved every single thing that Zendaya ended up doing here. She really transforms into this character, and absolutely, I think, deserves an Oscar nomination here. I don't know if it's going to happen. I hope it happens, but she definitely deserves to be in the conversation for sure. I loved every single thing that she ended up doing here. I think this is definitely one of her best performances to date, and she just continues to impress me more and more with everything that she's doing, and I just loved what she ended up doing here, and the chemistry between these two could not be any better. You really do buy the relationship that these two have, but you also buy that it's not perfect. There's a lot of cracks in that foundation, and both actors did such a great job with really diving deep into that and it feeling so natural, never feeling like it's being forced down your throat. This feels like such a natural pairing in that way, and I think that alone is enough for a reason to watch this movie. There's a lot of reasons why this film is so great, but without these two performances, the entire film would fall apart, and gratefully both of them very much rose to the occasion here and gave two of the most dynamic performances, I think, of this entire Oscar season for sure. But now let's get to the directing and the writing, because that is the other thing that very much impresses me with this film. Sam Levinson's directing here is very specific. There's a lot that he is trying to do in this movie. But what I also really love about this film is that he isn't really trying to make this more than it really is. He doesn't want to dramatize, these characters. He really just kind of lets it play out for himself. He talked about, I saw this quote from where he said something along the lines of like, when he didn't know what he wanted to do, he referred to his actors. And that's something that's very important to do as a director, is recognizing your talent and utilizing your talent. And Levinson, I think, does such a great job of that. I've always felt like he's done an excellent job of just kind of letting his actors do what they need to do. But you can also see there's so much he's trying to do within this film. He wants this to be a reflection of not just a relationship, but also showing creative differences between two characters. I think especially after Assassination Nation, this is a huge improvement over that for sure. I mean, he really has improved as a director, and you really do get to see that. I mean, I've known this since Euphoria, but you really do get to see that in this film. He has such a specific style that I think just really works with this film. It feels so raw and natural, and I really love what he ended up doing in this film directing-wise. But writing is the thing that I think a lot of people are talking about. And for me, I think that this is a phenomenal screenplay. I think there's a lot of things this film does very well in terms of the screenplay here. Mainly because, I mean, I've heard a lot of people say this movie is just these two characters arguing, and it's really not that. The film takes a lot of time to really get you to that point. The film is really about getting to see both of these characters' emotional journeys, them coming off both going through highs and lows in just one night, and you really do get to see that here. But you also get a chance to really examine who both of these characters are. I mean, Malcolm, yes, he's very passionate. He's this very talented director, but he also is so much of an egomaniac that if he gets one review that accuses his film, not even if it's a bad review, but if it accuses his film of being something more than it is, he just kind of goes off. And it's a really interesting way of looking at this character, looking at someone that, again, is just so attached to his work that if anyone misunderstands the intentions of it, I mean, he has major issues with that, and you really do get to see that throughout this entire film. I think that's something the film does a really great job with, is just showing, again, just how bitter he is about this stuff, how he's so hung up on the littlest of things, and I think it really does work for Malcolm, but it also makes us really care for Marie, because during all of this, it doesn't really seem like he cares very much about her. Obviously, yes, she's in his life, and yes, he does appreciate her, but there are clear points in the film where you can tell he does not give her the time of day that she really does deserve, and this gets us to really question, why are these two together? But also get us to question a lot about Marie, because she's someone that is very much ignored throughout a good portion of this movie. She kind of just lets him rattle off and go off on these tangents, no matter what they are. And you see that this really does start to nag at her, though. The fact that there are certain things that have gone on throughout their relationship that she just hasn't really verbalized until now. It feels like this is the point where everything is coming to a head. And it also, they do a really good job of not making it feel like we've missed anything, because obviously they had to work with what they could in this movie. The whole thing's in one location, so we're not able to ever leave this house or anything like that, but it doesn't feel like there was a lot that was lost by doing that. If anything, it's very much like a stage play, and I think it very much works as one, to where you really get a chance to know who these characters are outside of just this one night. You know, you really get a chance to know Malcolm and the struggles that he made with this film, but also what that film did to their relationship. There's a lot of things that Malcolm has done that Marie is not very happy about, and you really do see how that starts to annoy her. It starts as something as simple as him not thanking her in his speech, which is something that bothers her. And then it escalates to much bigger issues that she has gone through that I thought were really interesting to dive into. And it never feels like the film is telling you too much. It never feels like the film is repeating the same conversation over and over again. I've seen a lot of people say that, but I really didn't feel that way. I think they did a good job of each time just it escalating into something bigger. And yes, maybe it's a similar argument, but it always goes to something more. And that's something that I really did appreciate with this film, and I think they did a really good job with that overall. And it also does a really good job, though, of getting you to really see both sides of who these characters are. The film isn't really trying to take a side here. You know, you might side with Malcolm, but then sometimes you'll also side with Marie, and I think the film did a really good job with, you know, really just balancing it out there with both of these characters and really getting us to understand who both of them are throughout this entire film. But there's also a lot of things this film is trying to say, specifically about movies, a lot of it about movie critics. I'm sure you've heard there are 2 scenes in this film that absolutely roast critics, and yeah, it definitely does. I mean, it does not portray them in a very favorable light, but the things that Malcolm is saying kind of need to be said. They feel very honest. They feel very true in that way, and I personally really loved the way the film went about that, and I think that's something the film did a really good job with, but it also is diving a lot into the misconceptions that people have with black-led films, that they see every black-led film as like, you know, some sort of political statement, but Malcolm sees it a bit more straightforward than that. He doesn't think that that's the case, but then Marie, on the other hand, she sees it differently, and I think both perspectives, you know, people have thought up, people have thought about, and I think it works very well in this movie that they go about it that way. I definitely liked the way that was handled here. And like I said, I really did find myself so invested in this story. And yes, this film can be very exhausting, but I feel like it's supposed to be. You really do feel like you are put through the ringer with both of these characters. You feel just as emotionally drained as both of them do when those arguments are over. I mean, these are not easy conversations that these characters are having, and the film doesn't try to act like it is, but it really doesn't pull any punches and doesn't hold back, and really showing what these characters have gone through, some of the personal struggles, some of the things that maybe the other didn't even realize was really bothering them, and how they end up reacting to that. I just thought was so fascinating to watch, and I found myself so drawn into the film because of that. So, like I said, I think the screenplay here is very well done. I think there's a lot of things this film really does dive into very well, and that's something that I definitely really did appreciate about this film. I think the screenplay overall is just really good here. The dialogue also just feels so natural. It feels like this is exactly what a director goes through, and how that can interfere with his relationship. And like I said, the way they handle a lot of these arguments. And also, I am going to address the thing that a lot of people have been seeing as a criticism for this film. Yes, there is a lot of parallels to Levinson's life. A big portion of this movie is that Malcolm is awaiting a review from the LA Times, and he really hates this woman from the LA Times. And a lot of people have brought up how, you know, when Levinson had Assassination Nation come out, it had a scathing review from someone from the LA Times, and how it's clearly him just being disgruntled and taking his aggression out through this character. character, but I didn't really see it as that. I saw it as, yes, there's parallels, but I feel like Levinson is not necessarily saying like Malcolm's attitude is the right one. I don't think he's giving Malcolm a pass here. He makes it pretty clear like this guy is an egomaniac. This guy is truly insane. I mean, the things that he gets upset about are ridiculous, and I think that's something that Levinson is aware of. He doesn't want us to side with Malcolm in this movie, and I think he definitely does do a good job with that, and maybe he did have a relationship like Malcolm has with Marie in here. Maybe he did, but that didn't really matter to me. What mattered to me is that I thought it was very well told. What mattered to me is that I was generally invested in their relationship throughout this entire film, and I thought they did a really good job of capturing and making it feel as authentic as it possibly could, and really not giving you a chance to breathe in this movie. Yes, there are points where you think the arguing is over, but then it goes back to something else, and yes, it can get tiring, but that's how this kind of stuff works. I mean, I feel like in this situation, this is what these characters would go through. It would cause them to bring up other moments that have affected them, other incidences that have occurred that they really haven't addressed until now. And I think the film does do a really good job of delving into that. And so for me, again, it's an issue that a lot of people are having, but I see it as a strength. I see it as something that really does elevate this film. I like what this film has to say about film criticism. I like what this film has to say about black filmmakers in Hollywood. I like what this film has to say about being a filmmaker and how that interferes with your relationship and how you are taking, experiences from your real life and translating them into art and the pros and cons of doing that. What impact that has on Marie as a character as well. It enhances her character because there's a lot of stuff that she hasn't necessarily been okay with that Malcolm has done, but she hasn't really expressed it because, as I said, she is very quiet and reserved, but there comes a certain point where she just kind of unleashes, and you really do get to see the pain that this character has gone through, the resentment that she has towards Malcolm for some of the things that he's done, and I was blown away with what they ended up doing with her character. I thought it absolutely worked, and again, it felt like a natural progression overall, and it obviously, yes, it's, Zendaya and John David Washington are a big part of it, but it's the writing as well that just feels so well utilized in that way. It really gives you time to get to know both of these characters, so when this moment happens, it feels that much more effective, and I thought they just did a really good job with that overall. They feel very real and natural, and it feels like a real progression for these characters. Again, it starts off as something that really isn't that big of a deal and then turns into much more pressing issues. And not only does it feel like this makes sense for this couple that clearly has had these issues for a while, but they haven't really addressed them until now, it also gives us a chance to get to know both of these characters and what they've gone through, and some of the very clear issues within their relationship, and really kind of makes you wonder if they're even going to, survive throughout the entire night. And I think that's something that the film just does a really good job with overall. So yeah, I think, like I said, the screenplay here is very well done here for sure, and definitely a consistent element of this entire film. The cinematography, though, as well here is so gorgeous. The choice to put this in black and white, I think, was definitely a good one. It gives the film a very different feel. I think it definitely really does work here. There's some truly gorgeous shots in this film that I really did appreciate a lot. Again, limited locations, but they really do make the most of it with the black and white cinematography, and I think it definitely does work here for sure. And the score in this film, it's a very jazzy type score. You don't hear it a lot, but it really does work in this film, and I really liked whenever it appeared, and I think it definitely was, again, one of the best elements of this film for sure. I really enjoyed the score throughout this entire film, and the editing. I do think this film, definitely, it's 106 minutes, and I didn't really find it to drag at all. I've seen a lot of people say that the film dragged a bit, and it got a little too repetitive, and I really don't feel that way. I felt like the film was very well paced, and I thought they did a really good job of, again, diving into these issues and really giving us enough time to understand who all of them are. And I thought they did, a really good job with that overall. I really enjoyed the editing throughout this film. I also will say the ending of this movie is one that I think is going to definitely get a lot of people talking, for sure, and in a good way. It's one that I think a lot of people are questioning, and it's one that I myself am questioning, but I think it really does work for this movie. I really love where this film ends up going in the end. I was not expecting it to wrap up the way that it did, but it really does work for this film, and I definitely really did appreciate that overall. So again, there's so much I love about this movie. There's so much that it does do well. Do I really have any issues with it? Well, with a film that is this dynamic and this different, it's really hard to come up with an issue, but if I did have to have one, I will say there is an issue that comes up regarding something that the character of Marie has gone through, and it's the only time where I felt like maybe this could have been better if we would have actually gotten to see it play out. As much as I like hearing about it, I would have liked to dive a bit deeper into it, and I think it would have just made it that much more impactful. It already is very impactful, but I think there was a little bit more they could have done with it overall. Other than that, though, this is truly an amazing film. It's got two amazing performances from both John David Washington and Zendaya, a great acting showcase for both of them. It dives into a relationship, but also really showing the creative struggles that a director goes through and how that really can interfere with his relationship, and how very often there are problems that are arisen that we haven't really addressed. It feels very raw. It feels very realistic in that way. It does definitely draw parallels to who Sam Levinson is as a person, but again, a lot of films have done that before. A lot of films, a lot of directors like to relate things based off of their real life experiences, and I feel like Levinson did a really good job with that for sure. It's just the perfect example of the kind of film that can really showcase your creative expression. I think especially when we're having these horrible films coming out like Songbird and Lockdown, this feels super refreshing. This is one of the very few standouts we've had, and I feel like Levinson is one of the only creators that has generally utilized the pandemic to his advantage. He's made a bunch of stuff that he probably was not originally expecting to make, but it really has shown his craft. It really has shown how far he's come as a director, and this film especially, there just isn't really a lot like it out there. This is such a special film that, again, it's not going to be for everyone. It's very polarizing in that way, but it's one that since I've seen it, I have not been able to stop thinking about it. I wish this film was getting a lot more talk, especially Oscar-wise. I just wish in general this is a film that got a lot more praise than it really did deserve, because I think that there's a lot that this film definitely does do very well. Overall, this is one of the best films of the year for me, and I am going to give Malcolm and Marie overall an A. But over, guys, to my review of Malcolm and Marie. Let me know what you guys saw this movie. All of your thoughts on it. We'll see you guys in my next video, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.